Mr. Speaker, I want to make a few brief comments on this matter, Mr. Speaker. And the first one I want to make is that we still don't know for sure who leaked this document. And the next point I'd like to make, Mr. Speaker, is if this inquiry was properly set up, or in fact, I want to say, if Mr. Henry did his job properly, we would know. Mr. Speaker, this inquiry could have been set up. The Prime Minister could have asked the State Service Commissioner to set up this inquiry. At that point, the inquirer, would have used effectively the Commissions of Inquiry Act and the powers thereof in order to take evidence under oath. The Prime Minister chose not to do that. But even then, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Henry could have come back to the Prime Minister and asked the Prime Minister for extra powers and for it to be properly set up. So I do want to somewhat criticise Mr. Henry for his approach. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Henry could have done, because these were emails to and from a minister, is to ask Mr. Dunne to release them under the Official Information Act, because these documents, these electronic documents, if there is anything to do with his role as a minister within them, are subject to the Official Information Act, and most of us are pretty sure that they will eventually come out. And in fact, I'd be very surprised if there are not half a dozen news agencies and a number of members of Parliament who have not already asked Mr. Dunne, or have already asked Ministerial Services for these emails under the Official Information. Sorry? Well, Mr. Speaker, if a journalist writes to a minister by email, then that journalist knows that that email is subject to the OIA. If someone went to Ms. Vance's inbox and took it out of there, that would be wrong. But it is something which is received by a minister, and more importantly, the messages that were sent by a minister are also subject to the OIA, and eventually it will come out. Now, I want to contrast that with the case that the Prime Minister keeps on bringing up to do with my colleague, the Honourable Phil Goff. Mr. Speaker, Phil Goff received documents that had been leaked. They were sent or given to him. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Goff has made it clear that if the Prime Minister puts Dunne under oath, then Mr. Goff will release all relevant emails. He will release all relevant emails and give access to ensuring that all relevant emails are released. But what do I hear from the Prime Minister? Not a word from the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not have, we're not allowed to say balls, are we? We did not have not allowed to say that either, the spine to stand up in this debate. He did not have the spine to stand up in this debate and to try and justify his position.
Point of order, Honourable Chester Borage.
Prime Minister, which is unparliamentary.
The member made a lot of insinuations, and I guess the extension of those is that they were unparliamentary, but he kind of stopped, I think, short. It certainly, when we're talking about skeletal matters, if that's what the member was referring to, that has been used in this House before. And I'm not sure whether that makes it right or wrong. I'd certainly prefer not to see it used. Do you want to help, Mr. Brown?
I think, Mr. Speaker, you have quite rightly identified the bound between what might have been totally offensive and otherwise. I understand the case that you are speaking of before. It was where a former Prime Minister accused the Leader of the Opposition of being a spine looking for a chill to run up, a similar sort of a shiver to run up, sort of description that could be offered to the current Leader of the Opposition.
Let's just park it all and say, let's keep to the debate, all right? Honourable Trevor Miller.
Helen Clark, Jim Bolger, Rob Muldoon, David Longy, in this circumstance, would be on their feet and defending their position. And I want to know why John Key is not defending it. But I think I do know. I think I do. Because he won't defend the indefensible. Because there is a stink coming from the crossbenchers. There is a stink coming from over there. There is something rotten. There is Banks and there is Dunne. And they are the ones that are holding this government together. The man who's in and out of the dock regularly for getting brown paper bags full of money during his mayoral campaign, and Peter Dunne, who will not tell the truth in these matters, Mr. Speaker. This government is being held together by a pair of individuals who, Mr. Speaker, stink and should not be in this parliament.
Louise Upson.
Mr. Speaker, it's not really a pleasure to speak in this debate, and I have to say I'm quite